environmental toxicology, soil science, and water science. When I graduated from UC Davis, because of my construction background in the mid-'80s, I really fit right into the environmental industry, which was just growing like weed at the time. And I ran all the field operations. I built some of the first air strippers and pump and treat systems in California, especially Santa Clara County, and started doing phase ones in the late 80s. That company I helped grow from 7 people and less than $1 million growth up to 120 people and $22 million gross a year. Then it was privately owned, and then it was sold. At that time, I had a golden parachute. I took that golden parachute and started a company called Phase I Inc. in 1991. At that time, I also started participating in helping write the first standards in the ASTM. And I've been participating in the ASTM since then. Since 1991, I've worked on or helped completed or read or reviewed or whatever tens of thousands of phase ones. During that time, about 20 years ago, we started a division, which is now ERS, Environmental Record Search. And that division did all the historical and regulatory research for all our phase ones, because we're doing thousands of phase ones a year. About 3-4 years ago, we decided to start winding down phase one and focus on ERS, because everybody was getting burnt out on doing phase ones and phase twos, and a lot of the original owners didn't want to do the work anymore and decided to retire. Unfortunately, I didn't retire, but not really. I enjoy ERS. And so pretty much we've shut down Phase I Inc. End of this year, we'll probably sell the name and the website and that kind of stuff. And all the business is pretty much distributed among ERS's clients. And we're strictly focused on the database search and that kind of thing. So that is why I have a lot of background in phase ones. What we're going to go over today are some of the organization and tools we use to optimize our phase ones and squeeze out every bit of profit without risking our quality. So we stayed out of lawsuits. And phase one in 28 years of business, knock on wood, had never been sued for one of its phase ones. And that's pretty good. It doesn't mean we never made a mistake. It does mean that we are fairly organized and things work pretty good. We do it a little different than partners or AEI or some of these other companies do. We actually had field inspectors, and we are set up so just about anybody could do our field inspection under the direction of an environmental professional, and all reports are written in-house. That way we could control the process, the quality, and that kind of thing. And hence why we collected all our own information. We couldn't get good enough information from EDR and Vista at that time, and BBL, and some of the other database companies. And we didn't think their information was accurate enough, and nobody stood behind their data. Whereas ERS stands behind their data with 2 million of environmental errors and emissions, professional liability, insurance, and nobody else does that. So if you don't have any questions on my background, that's kind of why I can talk about this a little bit. Doesn't mean I know it all, because I learn every day. And if you just pick up one or two things that are going to help you optimize your phase ones, uh, be more accurate, make more profit, um, then hey, you benefit, especially since the webinars are free. And because they're free, it's a pretty loose structure. I pretty much just talk about my experiences and that kind of thing and show you all kinds of things. I teach a whole bunch of different webinars, from how to interpret aerials and fire insurance maps to doing a great site walk and that kind of thing. And I can pretty much do these webinars anytime. If you like what you hear in one of the webinars and you'd like a group of people in your company or in your area to hear the webinar, you can either download it on YouTube, or I'd be glad to do a private webinar just for your company or your club or whatever you got going. So if there isn't any other questions, I'm assuming you can all hear me. I'm going to dive in. So today, optimize your phase one, part one. You know, organization and preparation is everything. We learn through hard knocks that, you know, when you win a contract, you've got to ask the right questions, get the right information. You don't want to get down the road and find out you've got to do a file review, or get down the road and find out you underbid a project so bad and they weren't telling you that it was a Superfund site or something like that. And so we had all kinds of different questionnaires and stuff like that. Everything we go over today, we'll be glad to provide you a copy of if you're a client. If you're not a client, all you got to do is start buying our 1 mile radius searches, which is our rec check report, and we'd be glad to send you copies of not only this presentation, but all the documentation behind it. And the documentation is really important because, again, if you spend an extra 5 to 15 minutes to set up a project properly, in the end, you'll make more money and you'll be more efficient, and you'll be more accurate in what you do. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So now as we go along, you're going to find out that I speed up my talk, because if no one stops me and asks me questions once in a while, then I become a jet airplane and just whip right through it. If you slow me down once in a while and ask me questions, and no question is a dumb question, it'll slow me down and you'll get more information. So feel free to ask a chat question anytime, and we'll go ahead and post you and select it, and we'll go ahead and answer it. So anyone have any questions starting off? Now, remember, the order I do things in and talk about things may be different for your company, and you can definitely change it up, of course. All this documentation leads to writing the phase one site assessment report in the template that when you order a rec check report, a 1 mile radius search report from us, you can select to get this free template, and a lot of information shoots into it automatically. And that's 100% free. We don't charge you for using our template. If you're a user of 2 or 3 rec checks or more a month, we'll go ahead and alter that template for you to meet your template. We'll try to merge them for you. All you have to do is send us a Word document of your template, and we'll go ahead and make a template just for you. So when you order with your password each time and you order that template, then I'll automatically shoot into your template. And it's all a Word document, so it's all changeable anyway, right? So remember, all these documents that we're going to go over today, and all these things we're talking about, fit right into the report writing template that ERS has. And it's through years and years of experience that we design these templates. So, okay, we're going to get going. Optimizing your phase one, part one, setup and preparation. That's all we're going to go through. I tend to ramble a little bit, so, tell me to speed it up if you want. Oh, I think I went too far, huh? So I don't think going over preparation of the field folder is the biggest thing. Oh, and the slideshow, I went too far. Preparation, opening the job. So this is the most important. We have an in-house software program called Master. And when you bid a job, you get signed a quote number, and you'd put in certain specifics of the job, and it'd assign a cost to it. And of course, you could range that cost. And then when we won the job, we go in there and say we won it, and it automatically assign a job number and print out a sheet on the specifics of the property, like the client contact, their phone number, the address, lat long if there is one, that kind of thing. And it automatically also run the rec check radius search report. And that's really important. And then in this case, for us, it automatically ordered the regulatory and historical research to start in our department, which is now ERS, their own company. And it also sent out the questionnaires. And we're going to talk about those questionnaires a little bit, but this is all real important. So when you're opening a job, you've got to assign the job number. You've got to send out the questionnaires, because the sooner you do it, let's say you only have a 10, 14-day time frame to do this phase one, you got to get these questionnaires out, because these questionnaires help save you time on research in the site walk if you know what you're looking for. You need to arrange the site walk, because sometimes, and you want to arrange it, let's say you got a 2-week time frame, you want to arrange it somewhere in the second week, so you've got time to gather enough data, so when your site walk person or site inspector goes out onto the site, they have all the information they need, so they don't ever have to go back out to the site. And while they're out at the site, they might need to go to the fire department or the local library to pick up some more history, or go to the local agency for environmental to review an adjacent site, or even the subject site file. Because keep in mind, the data that the agencies give us online lots of times isn't complete, and the paper files are complete. And sometimes you need to look at the paper files, and ASTM even says that's up to the environmental professional to decide if they should do a file review or not. And so you're assigned that task, and you take the liability whether you decide to or decide not to. So the more time you can have to make sure when the site inspector goes out that they get everything done in one time. If anytime you have to go back, it costs you money, and you want to remember that. So we had a form just for arranging the site walk that went into the field file. So we would make a field file, a financial file, and a report writing file. And if we were to do it today, we'd probably do that in a, how would you say it? We'd probably do that in electronic files, but we'd still have those 3 separate files. Very important because they are a little different files. Once the sidewalk file comes back from the field, then all that information is merged in to the report writer's file. Now, they may be one and the same, but it doesn't matter. It keeps things organized as you're going along. So the other thing, once you've arranged your sidewalk, you want to order your check radius search report and any regulatory or historical research you want done for this property. Now, if it's where your office is in your town and you know all where the aerial photos are and city directories and fire insurance map, it's obviously less expensive for you to do it yourself. It's probably never going to be less expensive for you to do the radius search, because gathering all the agency data from all agencies we get the data from is far more time consuming than the $74 the radius search report costs. And you don't want your people spending time dealing with government agencies or trying to find things. But on the historical, regulatory, hey, if you have already got it down, do it yourself. If you don't, we'll be glad to do it for you. Or if you've got a site that's outside of your normal range of doing phase ones, that's probably where you'll want to order the regulatory and historical research. And then, like I said, you're creating 3 folders. Make sure you create the field folder. The field folder is very important because you have inside that folder, you're going to have the form for the site walk. It's going to have the person's name that they're meeting. It's going to have their cell phone number. So when they get there, if they don't show up, the time they're supposed, date and time they're supposed to meet them. That's all very important. And without that information, things get confused. Sending emails, don't always do it. Hard copy in a field folder is really nice. In addition, we always had 2 maps. One just a regular map, so street map, so they knew how to get there. The other was a zoomed in map, aerial photo it can be from Google Earth Pro and zoomed in. So then as the site inspector is walking around the site taking pictures, they can put arrows and a number where they took the picture. So remember, they're your eyes and ears. Now, if it's the same person writing the phase 1 report, it's helpful too, because if you're doing multiple sites, you don't get them confused. But basically, you want to do things in the same order, same way all the time. But in that field folder, we're going to put a map to mark the photos. So this is opening the job, preparation. You're starting to create the field folder, very important. Preparation. We already said order a rec check radius search report, but things you want to review before the assessor goes out in the field. You want to review on a map the subject site and adjacent sites. And usually I would do that right inside the rec check radius search report, because really the radius search report gives you all information. And why are you reviewing this, taking 5-10 minutes to review this before the site inspection? Well, you want to make sure whoever goes out and does that site inspection knows everything possible to look for, what to look for on adjacent sites, hazardous material storage, spills, monitoring wells, anything like that. Or on the subject site, there at be a gas UST listing or something like that. You want to look. So let's look at a rec check report real quick and see the things we can really pick up out of a rec check report really really quickly. So let's see if I can find this. Here's a rec check report. So remember, I said you're only going to spend 5 or 10 minutes reviewing this rec check report. So you need a rec check report. You know how to get around. You can get around really easy, and you can get the information you want. Remember, all our reports in ERS were designed by environmental professionals who actually use them. So they've all been made to be user-friendly by the environmental professional. So this is our standard rec check report. If I was to review this, first thing I'd look and I'd make sure that it's my address. I don't want to be wasting my time on the wrong report. So I'm going to verify this in a couple ways. First, is my address correct there? And it was. Second is, to get around our report, the easiest thing is to open the bookmarks. And you can get around anything by clicking on it. So the next thing to verify that it's my subject site, I'm going to go to the 16th mile radius map. There's the 16th mile radius map. And I see that my star is on the center of the property. It's got the correct site. That is cool. So right away, I know I'm in good shape. Look at how all these buildings are touched. This must be a real downtown area somewhere. And as you saw, it was of Boston. So, and that was in the address on the cover. So right away, you can see, you see a bunch of yellow, a green over here, and a red over here. If you use our reports on a regular basis, you know that green is good. Yellow is that the agency didn't supply us with enough information to determine whether the site is open or closed, a concern or not, anything. And so it's yellow. Yellow means you should at least look at it to make sure there's no concern for your subject site. Red right here is bad to the bone. Red is something you should almost always look at. And depending upon how groundwater flow goes, whether red would be a concern or not. So let's go to the quarter mile map here a little bit. And this is why we have a 16th of a mile map. We are the only radius search company that I know of. We have copyrighted the 16th of a mile map. So if anyone else has it, please let us know. But basically, they shouldn't have it. So here's, if you had a quarter mile map, wow, look at that, congested, huh? And that's why you have the 16th, because it's more important. And in reality, you know, unless it's a really big spill or something, your site's not going to be affected by anything too much further out. It does happen, but it's very rare. Let's go out to the mile radius. And again, I told you it was Boston. So really, right in the center here is the highest elevation. And so if you follow the contour or, excuse me, the river or the bay, you know that groundwater is going to flow that way from a high point to the low point towards water. And so in this case, it's probably flowing south-southeast is my guess. And I'm pretty sure it is. So right away, we're looking at this thing. We just found out how to get around it easy. So what do I want my my assessor to look for? Well, right away, I can see my assessor has no listing. It would be number one if it did have a listing, but I'd probably want to look at number one, number two, number three, and number four. I don't know that 9 and 7 are going to be a big deal, but 1, 2, 3, and 4 could be. So let's look at 1. You just go over here, click on map 1 ID, and right away we see it was a pharmacy. And so they did all kinds of trading, and I'm guessing photo fixer developer. Remember the days when all pharmacies had photo developing? Well, this went all the way back to 2010, so that's 9 years ago. So, back then they trained in photo processing, and the chemicals they disposed of and stuff were volatile organic chemicals. One of the things, remember, you've got to address the potential for vapor intrusion into your facility. What we have is what's called mapped air permits. We're the only company that has this. Against this copyrighted. We map all the air permits with the potential dispersion direction based on prevailing wind from NOAA. Well, this also helps you in vapor intrusion, because really the only ones that are going to affect you are right next to you. So you would look at that point and say, hey, maybe 39, I should probably have them go look at it and see if they've had any cleanup or anything. But, I wouldn't worry about it. So I would probably have them just mosey over to that building 1, the address 6 Hamilton Place, which we saw is right there, and see what it is. So let's go back to 1. Let's see if it's changed what it is. Still CVS training, still CVS training. And so 2 is CVS pharmacy. Their hazardous waste biennial report, history, RCRA disposal, historical printers, dollars and cents is right there. Staples office store, printers. Now, in the old days of printing, not so much now because it's all digital, but back in 2010, we still had a lot of nasty chemicals and stuff that went into printers and had to be cleaned. And the printers had to be cleaned using solvents and that kind of thing. So it's looking like this Winter Street is a concern, right? Which is right over here. So all those things are right in here, and they use volatile organic chemicals and that kind of thing. And so it might be something you just want to look and see if there's any monitoring wells outside or anything. You could also go into the agency and pull the files and see what the files say on these sites. You're probably not going to find much more than on these sites what we have. So let's look at 3. Remember, we wanted to look at 3. I just wanted to see what that last one, disposal. So real quickly, historical spills. So this site had a spill, but if you wanted to know what that database was, you would be able to go all the way to the end of the report and look at record sources search and look up and see exactly what they are. So that's pretty sweet, and it's really easy to use, and it's really easy to get around. So let's go back to 3 and historical printers, but this is a publishing. So this is a whole lot different. So publishers use huge quantities of inks and stuff and ink, solvents to clean their printing presses and all that stuff. And so in this case, they even had a spill back in 1990. Wow. Excuse me. So keep in mind, lots of times you'll have a link right up here where, excuse me again, you can get right to, here's a link. You can get right to the file on this site by cutting and pasting, or sometimes, depending upon how your computer system's set up, hitting Control and clicking on that, you can get right to that website and file and link on the site. So pretty good. So 3's just got a historical spill, and it was a printers. 4 is another one we are going to look at real quick. And here we got, it's a registered facility, historic air, potential emissions. So they have an air permit. So if they have an air permit, remember, they used volatile organic chemicals, period. Now, usually it's volatile organic chemicals. Sometimes it can be semi-volatile, but usually it's, auto body, spray booth, cleaners, that kind of stuff. So these guys were historical printers too. Wow. Tons of printers in this area. That's really interesting. So there's a lot I'd probably look at, but this was a printer here. This was a printer here. You got all around it. All those are potential vapor intrusion. What you got to do is go find out if there were any spills, if there's any monitoring wells around here when your person goes out and does the site inspection. So I would make a note for them to look around and look if they can peek inside any of these buildings or anything and see what you see. Let's go out to the quarter mile real quick. Really quickly, we know the groundwater in this site isn't going to affect us. Now, one way 16 could affect us is if they released a lot of volatile organic chemicals, they could get trapped under the building foundations here and travel easily over to our site, or via utility conduits and stuff like that. So let's go down to 16 and see what this site is. So basically, release abatement measure. So they've had a release in 2008. I don't see any closure. I'd probably want to go to the details list and get some more details, but I would probably want to go and review this file because we don't know what the release was. Was it a volatile organic chemical or what was it? Yeah, so I think we really we probably need to do a little more research. So I'd have my field assessor, while they're out in the field, go to the appropriate agency and go ahead and look at the file of this site and see what it is and see if it could affect your site. Keeping in mind, probably not, only because groundwater flows away from you. Another way to think about groundwater flow, here's our subject site. Right here at the star is the how do you say it, is the high point of Boston. And so everything's going to flow just about like that. Remember, the Superfund site's somewhere over here. Or not Superfund, but open case is somewhere over here. Most likely not going to affect your site. But remember, you got solid, maybe it's about here. So you got solid buildings that could transport stuff. And also, let's say you have a sewer line or a storm drain underground, and those can be conduits for volatile organic chemicals. So you really need to think about it. Okay? But you might as well have your guy go ahead and look at the file for that site to be absolutely sure it's not volatile organic chemicals. Now, other people wouldn't have done it this way. You could have went exactly to the executive summary. You can look at all the different listings, what they are, how far away they are from your site. Because remember, all the details are, let's see, site number 1 is 0.02 miles away. We know it's adjacent, and it's 5 feet higher. So let's go to site number 1 right here. Right here is 5 feet higher than our site. That's pretty huge. So if they had a big spill or anything, that could concern me a little bit, right? And in Boston, groundwater is probably pretty shallow because they're surrounded by groundwater. So all that's really important to take into account. Okay, so I'm already making notes and preparations for my site inspector, but this is only brief. Now, keep in mind before um, before we uh, had our app, you really needed the radius report. All our clients get free use of our app. Our app literally works on site. So you've got your app downloaded onto your cell phone, your inspector does. You're standing in front of or inside or outside, wherever you can get good phone reception, and you order a report. It's a very basic report, but it tells you everything adjacent and on your subject site and only big issues. So it'd be only yellow and red issues for the most part, and then not all yellow. So like leaking underground storage tanks, spills, hazardous materials usage, that kind of thing. And you get a 2-page report, and that can be now used in the field so that an inspector knows what to look for on site and knows what to look for on adjacent, and can save you a lot of time and money, because remember, you do not want to go back. So the possible files that the site and field inspector is going to do is local files, local history. We also want to review the environmental questionnaire. Remember, the purchaser of the Phase I is supposed to have people fill out environmental questionnaires. Well, hopefully you got some of them back now. And the owner questionnaire. If the bank has a questionnaire, you definitely want that, and you want to review those so you know what to look for, because they're going to say, hey, was there any hazardous material usage? And so what's a good questionnaire? Let me see something. Okay. What's a good questionnaire? Well, we've designed a whole bunch of questionnaires, and we've designed, I did the same thing I did last time, didn't I? I zoomed too far forward. So what's a good environmental questionnaire? Well, we've designed environmental questionnaires for the owner, the operator of the site, that kind of thing. And again, we'll provide you with copy of these, because maybe they will help you. How do you say it? They will help you do your job just a little better, or maybe you'll get 5 or 10% of the stuff you want to use and put into the questionnaires you already have designed. And so you're welcome to them. And like I said, we'd be glad to give you a copy of them in Word format, so that you can cut and paste anything you want into your already questionnaire. So here's the tenant interview form. If we don't get these back, sometimes we'll have the field, or used to have the field inspector fill them out. But there's all kinds of good information on these things. These things are designed to help find out everything there is on the property and help the report writer write a report. So it's really important. So there's a lot of generic things in selections, but there's also stuff. Do you know of any previous street names or addresses related to this site? How long have you been on site? How many structures and buildings? And all these things are important to know before you go do the site walk, so you know how long the site walk's going to take and that kind of thing. Is there a title report, appraisal report, plot plan, site plan? All these can help you get your job done. Then we have some of the common things that ASTM requires or AAI requires, and also some added things. So is there groundwater wells, oil, gas wells, hazardous materials management plan, business plan, which you want to get a copy of, MSDS is above ground, below ground, storage tanks, electrical transformers per ground lit. All these things help you. And if you can get these back before you do the site inspection, then your site inspector knows what to look for and not miss a thing. And then your typical thing, do you know of any liens, that kind of stuff. All these questions are designed not only to gather information, but to help you do your job and save you time and money. So sending these out, tracking them down, and spending the 5 minutes to make sure you get them back is really important. Okay, so we went over the questionnaires. Let's go to the next one. Now, preparation of the field folder. Remember I told you site contact, name and numbers, got to go in there. Site location map, map for marking on. That's for marking on heavy stains, hazardous material storage, marking areas for your aerials and all that kind of stuff. And I may actually have a sample of that somewhere. I may not too. Let's see. Let's go back to this one and let's see if on the end. No. Okay. So basically, why is it helpful to mark with a direction arrow and a photo number on a map? So that if you're not the one writing a report and you're reviewing these photos, you can really get a picture of the site, know where everything is. Our field inspectors were taught to take pictures of everything, and especially unknown features and things they didn't know what they were, because then you can send those pictures back to the operator or owner of the property and say, hey, what is this? If they can't tell you what it is, then it becomes an unknown feature and it becomes a recognized environmental condition. Remember, you're looking for recognized environmental conditions, and they can be known, spillage, leaks, that kind of thing, or unknown or potential. Same difference, right? So remember that. They're all recs. And then you want to provide notes of what to look for. Well, who's ever going to be the report writer has supplied notes in that field folder for specific things for them to look on site and adjacent site. And then we always sent along the quarter or 16th mile map right out of the radius search report. That way they had an idea, and you could circle the number you wanted them to look for. Okay, the sidewalk, big thing. Organization on the sidewalk, doing the sidewalk the same way every single time you can, especially when you're doing multiple sidewalks in a day. It's very, very important. So we always told our site inspectors, get a business card of the site contact, on-site person, manager, and or owner. Get a business card from everybody you come in contact with if you can. Start on the outside. The first thing is take the most important photo, the photo that's going to go on your cover of your Phase I report. It's got to be a picture that shows the whole front, the address, the name of the business or whatever it is, whether it's apartment complex, whatever, because that is your cover photo. That is your most important photo, and it starts each job. So every photo that follows that until you have that cover photo again on the next job keeps the jobs separated also when you get them back in files. So work clockwise around the perimeter. Lots of times you're dictated by your site contact how you go, whether you do the outside or inside first, but always try to push to do it this way and always work clockwise. Do it every time you can do it. If you go into a big warehouse, work clockwise. A big property, work clockwise. Always work clockwise. Taking pictures of everything and eventually marking on the photos. Now it becomes too cumbersome to mark on that map all the photos. You're going to want them to mark on the photos on the way, how do I say it? outside sitting in their car before they leave the site. So in case they forgot something. So note drains, subsurface features, French drains, clarifiers, etc. on the map. Very important. Immediately when you're back at the office, download the files. But the big thing we forgot is the field checklist. We put a field checklist into every single field file. And the field checklist is absolutely important. And we had a different field checklist for commercial properties, industrial properties, and residential properties, apartment complexes, vacant land, that kind of thing. So let's look at one of the industrial checklists. So this is the checklist. Let's make this so it's just one page. So this is the field checklist, and this should have been put into the field file. It reminds the field inspector to address everything. That way they can't ever miss anything. And they should fill this out as they're going. And then what they can't fill out as they're going around taking their pictures and talking to the people, they need to fill this thing out completely before they leave the site. Because remember, it will key them on everything they're supposed to look for. If they do this properly, you're never going to miss something on a site walk. So, current use, current occupants, total number of existing buildings, total number of units inspected, specific units inspected. Are there any HVAC units? What's the fuel source? Number of existing wells, etc. I can go on and on and on. But look at the Q numbers. Those Q numbers answer that exact question in the template. Why did we do that? Because any word processor then can type these answers right in to the report writing template. Who's a better typist than most environmental professionals? A word processor. They'll type 100 to 120 words a minute. Can you type 120 words a minute? I doubt very many people can type, or environmental professionals can type 120 words a minute. That saves you time and money. It's a smart thing to do, and that's what we did. And so you answer yes or no to waterways, adjoining side. What direction does stormwater discharge for? You just circle it. Remember, these questionnaires were designed to exactly match our template. Whether they match your template or not, you can redesign these and use these, and you might pick up a little something. Is there any evidence on underground lifts, machinery, subsurface stuff, clarifiers, sumps, trenches? What photo number? Is it inside, outside? What type is it? Is it a 3-stage clarifier, or is it just a simple oil water separator? Surface conditions, railroad spurs, and all along it has all kinds of catch-alls. Every section has a catch-all for other concerns, adjacent sides, how you should take the photos, little photo descriptions so you don't have to do these later. And remember, a word processor can type these in if you want to save a little money. And that's our field checklist that when we used to do phase ones, they had to complete it before they left the site and complete the map that they were marking on. So we didn't ever have to go back to the site. You have to go back to the site. You just lost a couple $100 of your profit. Think about that. So back in the office, whoever did the site inspection immediately downloads the photos, review and mark the map. fills out an interview sheet if they've asked any questions. Do you know of any hazardous material spills, any underground storage tank? You want to document all this stuff. So what the interview sheets and stuff do, and the questionnaires do, is they become legal documents. So if the tenant and the owner both say there's no hazardous materials on site and they never had a spill and they've never had an underground storage tank, and you find out different or you miss something because of it, you've just protected your client and protected you by documenting all this: date, time, and person's name. Very important. Give the file to the EP or report writer. If you're the one who did the site inspection, of course, you just keep the file. Otherwise, you just put that whole file in the report writer's file. Remember, organization, everything tied together, everything designed so you can't miss a thing. Writing the report. We're not going to go into writing the report. We're going to go over that a little more. But basically, you would review all this document, review the sidewalk and photos, ask questions of the assessor, review the questionnaires, and review rec check and historical report. Of course, you'd sit down and do that. And we're going to go over how I do it and how it can make it quicker and faster for you, especially when you have all these things filled out. And we have a lot of these things filled out for the example I'll give you for our test case. And we'll go over that later. So that's pretty much it. Part 2 goes over writing the report, reviewing all this data, and all this documentation that came in that helps you keep it all organized and makes it real quick. Does anybody have any questions? I think we're pretty much done. You guys didn't slow me down, so I whipped through this really, really quick. Part 2 is tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if you're interested in coming, it'd be great to have you. If there's no questions, that was it. It's really, if you can learn, 5 or 10% things out of here that's going to help you and help you do your job quicker, better, faster, easier, this is the way to go. Again, I do teach a webinar on doing the sidewalk, actually physically doing it. And we've got examples in the test case. And same with writing the report. I also do teach a webinar on how to interpret the rec check and the historical research, the aerial photos, city directories, fire insurance map. So if you've got somebody in your company who's a little rough and needs a little tune-up on some of that stuff, I can usually help them out and give them some good tips on things. But this is the organization up front and completing the phase 1 and all the questionnaires make writing the report so much easier, so much more accurate, and lowers your liability, your risk on doing these phase 1s. So if there aren't any questions, I thank you for attending the webinar. Do appreciate it. And we do appreciate those of you who are our clients. And if you're not our client, we'd really love to have you. Remember the app. If you're a client, Susanna will be glad. Send Susanna an email asking for the location of the app so you can download it. And she'll give you a link. And you can go download the app. And the app is really helpful. Sometimes when you're bidding a lot of jobs or bidding big jobs or bidding complex jobs, you can go out to the site before bidding the job, run the app, see what you're going to come across, look around, and then bid your job, and it helps you. Remember, the app usage is free to all our clients right now. It's still kind of in beta testing, but pretty much we got all the bugs worked out. So, you got any other questions? If you don't have any questions, thank you very much for attending and have a super, super afternoon. Okay, guys. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.